Okay, my name's Douglas Stewart Hanna, Douglas if I'm naughty. I'm 64, soon to be 65, and I was brought up in Auckland, so I'm an Aucklander, Titirangi. Lived there for 18 years and then moved up to Wangapara. I've been sailing most of my life. I started off in a P class at 14 that my dad and I built in the back shed, and that was a lot of fun and taught me a lot about sailing. And we graduated up to a keelboat when I was 15, 16, and finished off the inside over a period of 2 years, and then went sailing around the Hauraki Gulf, which was awesome. In 1982 we'd changed boats, got a more suitable boat, and decided we were going to do a circumnavigation of New Zealand. Anyway, we left Gisborne and there was a tropical cyclone that was diminishing up in the Coral Sea near enough to New Caledonia, a fraction north of New Cal, which was quite a long way away, about probably 1,1400 nautical miles from where we were. So we headed off and we got to East Cape, and this tropical cyclone had moved down within probably about 36 hours down to over the top of us, and they were predicting 60 knots of wind. So we thought we should be okay, and we'll run out to sea to give us a bit of sea room, so we didn't have to worry about getting in the land and going aground. And yeah, the weather got worse and worse, and the waves weren't that big, probably 4 or 5 metre waves, I suppose. But the wind was, unbelievable. Just they, at the lighthouse at East Cape, they recorded about 115 knots of wind, which is 190 k or something like that. You know, it's a lot of wind, and we were closer to the epicentre of it and probably got perhaps a bit more. And we were probably, I think we were about 30 nautical miles off White Island out to sea, and the boat got hit by a wave, and because there was so much wind, it was being held over, and they were awash with water. So it was, and we didn't have any sails up. It was just the pressure of wind on the mast and the rigging was enough to hold it right over, so the decks were awash. Anyway, the boat, I was down below sleeping in my berth, because in storms, if you're not on watch, you sleep. You know, you need to keep your strength up. So I was sleeping, and the next minute I woke up and the world was upside down, and I was on the roof of my bunk, which was a quarter berth, so you had to crawl into it. So I didn't have far to fall, rise, whatever. The next minute it righted, and they right with frightening speeds, yachts. They just, like, it righted so fast that we had an oven and it came adrift and went through a window. My mum was standing quite near the stove, and the stove went past and just kissed her forehead as it went past, just grazed it, just enough to break the skin and leave a slightly bloody line, not a deep cut, but just a scratch. And if she'd have been forward a matter of inches, it would have killed her, because it was a heavy unit. And if she'd have been back another 300 mils or a foot, she would have been clobbered by these other things that went through. Dad wasn't hooked on, and he went over the side. And the boat righted itself very quickly, as I said, and he thought, when he was in the water, he thought he had Les in his arms, and he hung on to this object, and as he came to the surface he realised that, oh no, it's not Les, it was a sail, a spinnaker. So he let go of that and hopped back on the boat, just hopped back on the boat. Now, you know what it's like getting out of a swimming pool. It's, with no ladder, and he just hopped out, just like someone had helped him out. It was, I mean, no doubt the adrenaline was flowing, but We had lots of miracles. You know, my mum, where she was, Dad managed to get back on board the boat, and the boat was moving through the water, so you know it would have been so easy for him just to be swept away and gone, just like that. Anyway, I came up to the into the cockpit, and we had a look around, and the top of the boat had been swept quite clean, so we had a fabric dodger in front of the wheel to give ourselves some protection. That was gone. There was a windsurfer in a bracket thing on the shrouds. That was gone. The dinghy that was on the foredeck, that was gone. Yeah, there was a lot of things just disappeared. You know, the pressure of the water and just swept it away. So we assessed the boat, and of course broken windows and the boat leaning over, water was coming in quite quickly, and we thought, well, we've got bilge pumps, but the bilge pump stopped working because it blocked, and the boat was filling up quite quickly. So we thought, well, we had a life raft on board, and we thought, well, we'll abandon ship and set this life raft going and get in it. When you deploy a life raft, you have it tied off, and then it's in a fiberglass hard case, and you throw it overboard. And it's a bit of an act of faith. You know, before we threw it overboard, I thought, there's so much that can go wrong here. It might not inflate, the rope might break, and it's gone. Anyway, we threw it overboard and it inflated, pulled it in beside the boat, and we had a bit of time. We had time to get a grab bag with food, extra water, extra flares. I had a bag of things that were precious to me. There was a diary, a Bible, a hymn book, my grandfather's gold watch, which was obviously ruined after I got into the water. But and so we get into this life raft, and they're not nice places. It's the closest thing I can describe it as being in a front loader washing machine. All right, so you're tumbling. A wave hits you, takes you under the water, the life raft tumbles, you come to the surface. Most of the time the life raft's upside down, so they have a canopy over the top, so you're enclosed, sort of. So we would get out of the life raft and right the life raft and then climb back in, and we'd leave my mum in the life raft because she wasn't a strong swimmer. And this happened multiple times, and then one wave came and I could hear this thing coming. I thought, oh, that sounds a big one, and we went under the water, and somehow I got swept out of the doorway into the water, and I came to the surface and looked around, and the life raft was probably from here to it was probably about 10 metres away, and I swam to it, and I was a good swimmer in those days, but it took all my strength to get there. I thought, oh, if it was any further, I wouldn't make it, you know, because you've got to realise the life raft was moving quite quickly. In actual fact, it drifted 200 nautical miles in the time we were in it. So, but got back to it, got back on board. I don't think it was upside down that time. And thought, oh, I don't want that to happen again. And so we worked that night. We worked shifts. We had one person resting, we had one person bailing, and we had two people holding the door closed because it had press studs to hold it closed, and the wind was too strong. It just blew it open. And we rotated, and we'd have, you know, a rest time, and round you go. Anyway, time carried on, and then I heard this other wave come, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to let that happen again. So there's webbing inside the life raft, and I wrapped it around my arms and hung on, and the life raft tumbled over, and it was like someone had ripped me out of the life raft, grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and pulled me out. I ripped this webbing out and ripped some chest muscles, as I found out later, and I was going out, you know. It didn't matter how well I hung on, I was going out. So once again, I was in the water, and it's probably the only time in my life I ever thought I might not get to the surface, I might drown, because I was fully clothed and I had this bag of books and bits and pieces. But obviously I got to the surface and looked around, and I couldn't actually see the life raft, so I was checked where the wind was, and yep, it'll be downwind, and I looked downwind, and it was 30 metres away, roughly. Probably a bit less, but close to 30 metres. It was a long way away, and I thought, went through my head, I haven't got a show of swimming. I won't make it, I can't make it. But you've got to try. You've got to try. So I reached out my hand like that to take a stroke, and there was a piece of rope just like that, but 30 metres long. Just like that. And I grabbed it, and I couldn't hold on to it because it was moving too quick. So I wrapped it around my hand like that, and I pulled myself back to the life raft. And that took a while, it took some time. And I got back to the life raft, and I was exhausted, absolutely spent, and I hung on to the side of the life raft, and I heard my own eulogy. I heard my dad say, "Oh, we've lost Doug. He was a good bloke," you know. It was hilarious, really. It really was, you know. I laughed and laughed and laughed about that. But and you know, they talked for a bit, and I just didn't have the energy to yell out. And after maybe a minute or so, I yelled out. I said, "Oh, I'm here!" Oh, and they pulled me back on board, helped me on board, and shortly after that, it occurred to us that it might be a good idea to pray. After that, you know, it's a good idea to do it earlier. Well, we prayed, and you know, as soon as we'd prayed, the life raft never tumbled. And conditions didn't improve for 12 hours at best. It was honestly, it was like we were in God's hand like that. We're just floating around in this noise and roaring and turmoil outside us. It was unbelievable, unbelievable. It's just a difficult place to be, and but you make the best of it. You have your laughs, you have your tears. The hymn book was just such a joy because we sang songs, we sang hymns, you know. So we sang songs, and yeah, and at that stage in my life, I was probably quite close to God, I think, you know, closer than I'd ever been, I would say. So the nights went on, and on the 5th night, I heard a voice in my head that said, "You're going home." And I thought, well, is this home or home, you know? There were two definite options there. And anyway, I woke up because you doze at best in a life raft, and shared this with the others there, and we sort of had a bit of a chuckle about it and smiled about it. And then I dropped back off, and apparently, I don't have any recollection of this, but I said that we were going to be found at 2 o'clock. Anyway, at about 1:45, we heard a plane, so we were very excited, like very excited. As I said, the life raft had flares in it, and we'd taken flares from the yacht, so we got the flares out of the life raft, and they were parachute flares, so you have to pull a plunger to actuate them. And nothing happened. Quick, second one, nothing happened. So the 2 flares in the life raft were faulty. Plane had gone by this stage, but we were confident that it was a search and rescue plane because of where we figured we were. There's no air traffic, and he dropped a flare as he turned. So, and that's what they do, the air rescue guys. So in 15 minutes or so, he came back, and we had a life raft flare, luckily, and we set that off, and it went, and the plane just, oh, I've never seen a P3 Orion as low as those guys flew. They were, anyway, the plane flew over the top of us, dropped flares, around us. They have a big searchlight on their wing and shone the searchlight at us, checked out what was going on, buzzed around for 20 minutes, half an hour. Then he came in again and he dropped us a buoy, you know. It was actually a sonar buoy, as it turned out, so they could come back to that point. And disappeared, and we thought, oh, someone will be by tomorrow, that's fine, we'll celebrate by having some water. We cracked a water, and then at about 4 o'clock the plane came back, and we thought, oh, that's weird, and we looked around on the horizon, and there was a ship. He buzzed this ship, a government research vessel. It was about, can't have been that far away, because probably 40 nautical miles away, because they put the hammer down and came up, and the ship dropped a ship's boat that they had on board, and they motored up, and the first mate was the skipper of this small boat, and his first words to us were, all right, where's your tickets? It was quite a hard case. So and so we hopped out. They helped us into this boat, and as the last of us got in, he said, where's the fifth one? He said, I saw 5 people looking out that door at me. I said, well, we said, no, there's only 4. And we spoke to him later on the ship, and said to him, there were only 4 people, but you may well have seen an angel, you know, because I'm sure we had angels looking after us on that trip. We came into past Princess Wharf, and I was up on the bridge looking out, and I said to the skipper, I said, oh, is there a cruise? There must be a cruise ship coming in. I said, look, there's a huge amount of people and TV cameras and lights and all that shit. And he said, no, they're all here to look at you guys. I said, you're joking. I thought he was having me on. He said, I'm serious. Sure enough, the boat went into Princess Wharf, and I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, we hopped off the boat and got on TV and newspaper front page, and we were big news. Just before the Falklands War, they were a bit short of news, I think. So, but important to reach out, important to pray. But after that, I fell by the wayside, as it were. You know, in my Christian experience, I was marking time, and so how many years ago, Althea? 10? About 10, eh?
2013.
Yeah. 9 years ago, I was born again. Yeah, just, I had this realisation that God loved me, He had my back, and really nothing could hurt me, you know. We are not worthy, but God loves us so much that He sent His one dear Son to die for us. And I mean, I can't get my head around the eternity thing, and I struggle to get my head around that depth of love. I have an idea as a parent, but it's that much again, you know. It's could I sacrifice my child for someone, for a stranger? Probably not, but God did, you know, for humanity, and we're a bunch of ratbags, let's face it, the whole lot of us, you know. We all have our moments, you know. We're not perfect, but He loves us as we are, and with the blood of Jesus, He sees us clean. And it's gold.